Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I'm going to have to take you on the road. This is so good for my ego. Wow, my head is spinning. So,
Don't take Kevin.
oh, Kevin's pretty good too.
I'm just kidding.
This is where I come from. This is our beautiful building in Montreal, Canada. You all really need to visit us. It's a lot of spectacular things going on. And Kevin said earlier, this small crowd, get to be a little personable. Well, somebody asked me, Dr. Gutman, what are you doing involved with a natural product? I thought you had a background, University of Calgary, McGill, Emory University, professor of this, all this very conservative stuff. And I guess that's a good question. I'm like, what am I doing here? I'll have to ask if you. I'll take you back to my childhood. No, just. I'll take you back to emergency medicine. I mean, emergency medicine is a fascinating field. You have to know about every single specialty. You have to be able to take care of a cardiac arrest, deliver a baby, and look into a kid's ear. It's great fun. It's great fun. It's great chaos. And it's great stress. And I did that for many, many years. I was a residency program director at McGill University, and something happened to me. Something happened to me, and I'm looking around the room, and I see the same thing happened to some of you too. What happened to me was I turned 40. And a 40-year-old emergency doctor is kind of like a 40-year-old professional sports player, 40-year-old hockey player, 40-year-old football player. You know, geez, find something else to do, because you can't do it. It just physically and the stress levels after all, you just can't do it much longer than that, not full time. So I changed my career, and I went from emergency medicine, which was standing in the midst of chaos, trying to make order from disorder, to being locked in a room with another person who usually looked better and felt better than I did. And being in the same room with that person, they had the audacity to ask me questions. You see, in the emergency room, either you're unconscious or too drunk to ask a question. And they were asking me questions like, Dr. Gutman, what kind of vitamins should I be taking? Dr. Gutman, what kind of exercise should I be doing? I'm 50 years old. Dr. Gutman, could you teach me how to stay healthy and eat well? And my answer to them was like a shrug of the shoulders. See, in emergency medicine, I was really, really good at fixing things that were broken. I wasn't particularly knowledgeable about how to prevent them from getting broken. And let me tell you something about doctors, a little secret about doctors. Doctors hate feeling stupid. And how many times can you shrug your shoulders in a day before your ego takes a beating? I said, oh, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to start to study nutrition. I'm going to start to study supplementation and exercise. And it was a real eye-opener. A lot of what I looked at was fantastic. A lot of what I looked at was nonsense. But I guess that's the same thing in any field, whether it's natural medicine or whether it's pharmacology. And one day, one of my patients comes busting into my room. It was a quiet day, it wasn't that busy. And he was able to get by my guard. One of my nurses in the front. And he comes into the room. This guy is an ex-Golden Glove boxing champion. Okay, so it was pretty dramatic. And he says, Dr. Gutman, I found something that can slow down the aging process, can take care of Parkinson's, good for Alzheimer's, good for cardiac disease. People with pulmonary problems should be taking it, kidney problems. And I said, whoa, Howdy. His name was Howdy. I said, whoa, Howdy. In Montreal, nobody laughs at that joke. And I said, whoa, Howdy. It sounds like you're reading off of a can of snake oil. How can one substance possibly have so many positive clinical benefits? And his answer to me was a big thud on my desk. And it wasn't his oversized fist hitting my desk. It was the sound of about 20 pounds of research articles that he dropped on my desk. And he said, Jimmy, you're going to go home and you're going to read these. Most of my patients don't talk to me that way. But if you're a Golden Gloves champion, you talk to anybody that way. And what Howdy managed to do by leaving me with that 20 pounds of articles was absolutely ruin the next 3 months of my life. Because I couldn't stop reading them. I was on the internet digging up more. I was canceling clinics to go to the McGill Library. And I was reading about glutathione. And one of the major authors, the major contributors to the field, happened to live in Montreal, in my own backyard. And this was Dr. Gustavo Bunos. And Howdy, being Howdy, managed to get me together with Dr. Bunos for an afternoon. And after speaking to this man and listening to the research, battery's dying. And after listening to Dr. Bunos, it was time yet again to change my career. Because what he was telling me was so damn important, I could not let it go by. I just knew that this was going to be something special. So I started studying glutathione 20 years ago. So I went from an expert in fixing things that are broken, knowing about every specialty that there was, to being specialized in a single small molecule. I wonder what my mom would have to say about that. So glutathione. Now I know not everybody's heard about glutathione. Who's heard of glutathione before? When I started talking about glutathione 20 years ago, I could walk into a room of physicians, and most of them wouldn't have heard of glutathione. But I guarantee you this, that in the next 2 or 3 years, everybody will be using the word glutathione as commonly as you use the word like antioxidant or cholesterol. Because there's been, to date, I think the number's over 125,000 articles published in the medical literature about glutathione. And you just can't get away from it now. Certainly in the medical journals, but now on TV, on the internet, anywhere you look, you're going to be hearing more and more about glutathione. So you're one of the first people in to learn about this. So glutathione. First of all, glutathione already exists in your body. We all have glutathione in our body. If we didn't have glutathione in our body, we wouldn't be here. And glutathione performs a number of different roles. And if I was talking to a medical audience, I could talk about 30 or 40 different roles that glutathione does in your body. But for the sake of getting you home before midnight, I'm going to have you remember these 3 letters, AID. Glutathione is an aid to your health. And what does this stand for? Well, A stands for antioxidant. Who's heard of antioxidants? Everybody's, see, if I would have asked this question 30 years ago, not everybody would have raised their hand. So what kind of antioxidants do you know? What kind of antioxidants do you take? C, A, E. Some other really fancy. If we went over to the health food store, geez, forget about the health food store. Now if we went over to the pharmacy, you'd see a whole wall of antioxidants. So we all know the importance of antioxidants for the treatment and the prevention of health problems. Let's look at the most common antioxidant, vitamin C. Is vitamin C a natural substance?
Yes.
We hope it is. We should be getting our vitamin C from oranges and other. You can synthesize it, but of course the natural form of vitamin C is better. Is vitamin C natural to your body? No. If you don't eat vitamin C, it doesn't appear in your body. You have to get it from your diet. So you would think that given the importance of antioxidants in hundreds of different disease processes, your body would make its own antioxidant. And in fact, it does. The antioxidant that's made most profoundly by your body, by every cell in your body, is glutathione. This is your truly natural antioxidant. And the other thing about glutathione is that of all the thousands of antioxidants we know of, and we've probably over 2,000 now that we've identified, none of them, get this, none of the other antioxidants that you know of or you take as a supplement or in your fruits and vegetables, none of them can work were it not for the presence of glutathione. Glutathione recycles these antioxidants. Glutathione recharges these antioxidants. And that's why if you go online now and you look up glutathione, you'll find glutathione described as the master antioxidant. And that alone should be enough for you to want to take advantage of glutathione. And I could stop there, but I won't, because I love to talk. I stands for the immune system. In a nutshell, people with low glutathione levels have a weak immune system. People with high glutathione levels have a strong immune system. It sounds rather simplistic, but let me just give you some of our research. We knew probably about 25 years ago that AIDS patients, this is the classic immune deficiency disease, AIDS patients, by definition, were going to be glutathione deficient. And not only deficient in their whole bodies, but deficient in the specific white blood cells that have gone wrong in AIDS, something called CD4 lymphocytes. Other people studied glutathione in AIDS patients and determined that the higher the glutathione levels in an AIDS patient, the longer they were going to live. The lower the glutathione levels, the quicker they were going to die. So what do you do with that information? What would you do? And that's what we did at McGill University. We got a grant from the Canadian government through what's called the HIV Trials Network, where we were taking AIDS patients that weighed 70 or 80 pounds. Thank you. Now I'll be able to talk in Calgary tomorrow as well. And raise their glutathione levels using the Immunocal. And the results were great. I mean, with some of them were getting back to work, and all the while we were looking at different parameters that we used to measure in AIDS patients, CD4 lymphocyte counts, viral loads, and all of these were improving. And because of that research, this spread worldwide. And many researchers across the world, especially in immune deficiency disorders, started to catch on to this idea of raising glutathione. But glutathione levels, we're not just talking about AIDS, we're talking about hepatitis A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C. We're talking about the common cold. We're talking about bacterial infections. Whenever there's a challenge to the immune system, one of the first things that gets tapped into is your glutathione levels. So by raising glutathione levels, you're able to establish a stronger immune system. And we have something very, very special that we acquired from the Canadian government. Immunotec and Immunocal being a natural product. Normally, natural products in Canada and the United States are not allowed to make medical claims. I can't tell somebody who comes to my office, for example, with osteoporosis, I can't say, drink milk is going to help your bones. I've actually broken the law by doing that. Because you can't make a medical claim about a food. Canadian government, because of the research that we sent them when they started this new office, one of the first things, we were one of the first companies in, gave us the right to say that taking Immunocal will help your immune system. Now, I know it sounds trivial, but this is huge. This is huge for a non-pharmacological to be able to make a statement like that. D for detoxification. Anybody here work in an emergency room? Anybody here ever been in an emergency room?
Second home.
Accident prone, are we? One of the nastier things that we need to take care of in an emergency department are people who come in with intentional overdoses. They're not happy to be there. Very emotional for everybody. What do you think the top 2 substances to take for an overdose is? I'll give you number 1.
Alcohol.
Alcohol. You got it. Very.
Several trips. Sorry, buddy.
It's actually quite rare to find somebody who's tried to kill themselves who doesn't have alcohol on board. And number 2?
Glutathione.
You'd think. Eh?
Oh.
Tylenol. Acetaminophen. Doesn't have to be Tylenol, but any acetaminophen. Did you know that a bottle of extra strength acetaminophen, Tylenol, or Radisol, or any of those is enough to kill anybody in this room? Why do you think that kids' Tylenols come in these cute little bottles? So when the little bugger pops the top off and swallows a pill, there isn't enough in there to kill him. And I say him because it's always a boy. And the way Tylenol or acetaminophen kills you, it's very toxic to your liver. Somewhere between 2 and 5 days, your liver falls apart from oxidative stress. And I think it's a great thing that it takes 2 to 5 days to kill. I always get silenced when I say that. Why is it a great thing? Because most people who take an overdose, either somebody finds them or they wake up in the next morning and the alcohol's gone and they go, oh, geez, what have I done? And they're either dragged into the emergency department or they go to the emergency department themselves. 2 to 4 days to kill you. If I can see you in 24, 48 hours, I can save your life. And how do I save your life? I raise your glutathione levels. I use a drug called NAC to raise your glutathione levels. So any emergency doctor or nurse would know that. We use NAC to save certain overdose patients. Why don't we use NAC at home? Because whenever I get somebody with an overdose like that, I'll always send a medical student to give the patient the NAC. Why medical student? Because inevitably that person will throw up on your shoes. So it's not the kind of thing you want to do at home. It's not just for acetaminophen overdose. Get this: cigarette smoke, automobile exhaust, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, and on and on and on. I can show you a list that is 6 font from the top of that screen down to the basement of this hotel of substances that are detoxified by glutathione. And I tell people that next to water, there's no more important substance for detoxification in your body. Oh, it's better in reverse here. This here might be the most important slide that you're going to see tonight. If you remember anything, remember this. You can't eat.
Oops.
Oh, we got to start all over. Oh, what a smart computer you have.
It's
So, okay.
Just restart.
Who stepped on the cord?
Dr. Spaz did.
Who didn't tape it down good enough?
I like you. Okay, so this should be coming back on soon. So so that we can make our own glutathione. This is truly natural. It's our own glutathione that we're taking advantage of. Here we go. Oh, you're so good.
Oh, hold on. That's not the right one.
I promise never, never to step on an electrical extension cord again. And if that doesn't work, that is very weird. I can make comments
Yoke
about
on the
that.
right. Yoke is on the right.
Hold on.
Well, if worst comes to worst, I can use that, or just make the whole thing full screen. So eating glutathione doesn't work. We have drugs that we use to raise glutathione, but it wasn't until late 1970s that Dr. Bunnels and Dr. Kongshaven at McGill University quite accidentally discovered a protein, a natural protein that raises glutathione levels. And that protein is called Immunocal. And there's no mystery. All that Immunocal does, it supplies your body with the building blocks so you make glutathione, you boost your immune function, and you take advantage of all the benefits that glutathione brings with it. And I challenge you to go online and look up glutathione. You'll never get off your computer. So this was our first big step. The Canadian government, in some ways, is actually way ahead of the Americans in that they opened up the opportunity so that a substance didn't have to fall either into a drug category or food. They opened up a middle category whereby if you apply for this by sending them ample research and they vet the research, they will give you the opportunity to make a powerful claim like that. So how do you make Immunocal? If you please don't tell head office that I'm giving away any secrets. I'm going to show you how to make Immunocal. Start off with a natural product. In this case, what we have is a protein. Were we to change it even a little bit from the way it appears in nature, it would not work. We have to preserve the integrity of this protein exactly as it's found in nature. And that means by not pasteurizing it, or not agitating it in a mixer, or not shaking it around. It's an extremely fragile protein, which is why you see on the boxes with Immunocal, never put into a hot drink, never put into a power blender, because you will kill the product. This is truly natural. We will go over to the grocery store, we see every box says natural on it. I challenge you to tell me how Twinkies are natural. Then You apply research to it. We've been doing this for over 40 years. We started off as a research team. We were not a commercial enterprise. We were scientists first. Scientists that knew nothing about business, and it wasn't until 20 years afterwards that they were able to commercialize the product. With some of the best researchers you can imagine, Nobel Prize winners, leaders of the field, and if any of you are physicians or researchers, just look at the list of names that have been deeply embedded in our research efforts. And research, you got to do research on it, but research is nothing until you get it published. And when you get it published, here's that word, peer-reviewed, it needs to be in a peer-reviewed journal for it to be credible. What is a peer-reviewed journal? Well, you send your study to this journal, and the editor will find 5 or 6 experts in that field, send them copies of your manuscript, and they will tear it apart. And you'll have to rewrite it, and they'll tear it apart again. It usually takes about 3 or 4 passes before you get it published. And if it's not strong, it does not get published in a peer-reviewed journal. So you may hear about studies, you may see companies that have studies done in-house or by a private laboratory. Who cares? It has to be in a recognized peer-reviewed journal. So that goes into the making of Immunocal. Is that enough to bring it out to market and protect yourself? No, you need to patent your products. Why do I bring up something as business-like as a patent? Because there is a specific type of patent called a method of use patent. It's not a manufacturing patent, it doesn't describe a molecule. A method of use patent is unique to the pharmacology industry because it says that this substance will affect your health in this way. It's very broad. We have method of use patents. I know the cameras are running, but it's general knowledge. For example, we have a method of use patent for Immunocal to act as a chemotherapeutic agent. We have a method of use patent that describes Immunocal for the treatment of HIV or AIDS seropositive individuals. Does that mean we can go out and market it that way? Absolutely not. These are research papers, these are patents, and it's still a natural product until the day comes where we send off an application to Health Canada to be able to say that. We can't talk about it, but we do have the patents. So what we need to do is take our research and apply. We've already applied for a number of patents, a number of medical claims, and there's more coming, folks. There's a lot more coming, and this is very, very rare in the industry. So what does Immunocal do? I used to have a hard time explaining what it does because it does so many things, but I think that if we look at this little pie chart here, pretty much summarizes it. Healthier. That's easy enough. Stronger. And believe it or not, smarter. So prove it, Gutman. Healthier. Again, 40 years of research. Here's just one of our recent trials. This was done at McGill University, mostly at the Montreal General Hospital. When you think about it, it should be obvious. You've all heard of rehabilitation. So you go and cut somebody up in surgery or give them chemotherapy, whatever it is, and then you put them into rehabilitation to get them back into shape, get them back at home, back to work. Why not try to make them healthier and fitter before the surgery. And what this group did, and continues to do, where we've got 3 or 4 studies in this area now, is that they get them into physical shape. They do exercise before the surgery. They get counseling about their anxieties and their perception of life. And they get Immunocal. And when you do that, you end up with a patient population that recovers quicker from the surgery, has less adverse effects, infectious complications. It gets the hell out of the hospital, which in Canada is great. Not so much in the US, because keeping somebody in the hospital there is big business. But this attracts a lot of attention because you can save money in your whole Medicare system. And I traveled around with Dr. Carley, who's a major author. I remember the first time we presented this, it was at a rehab conference in Chicago. We made waves. We made waves. But it requires a whole change in mentality of the doctors. It makes somebody healthy before you operate them. They're healthier, smarter. That's my brain. We've been at this since the turn of the millennium.
Cord.
Talk about smarter. Goes ahead. Oh, I have this thing. I don't need to go over. Dumb and Dumber. I wrote a paper back in 2004 on autism, which was very interesting because for about 10 years, I would talk about Immunocal, and somebody would raise their hand in a question and answer period and say, Dr. Gutman, what about Immunocal and autism? I said, I don't know. And then they would come to me and say, look, I got a brother, a cousin, a son, a daughter, a nephew, taking the Immunocal, they're getting better. Does that mean that I can go up in front of the next crowd and say, Immunocal is good for autism? Absolutely not. I need to see the research. And back in, I forgot what year it was, a long time ago, I came across a paper from Arkansas, of all places, where Dr. Jill James showed that when you took a group of autistic kids, 80% of them had abnormal glutathione levels. What does that mean? Well, there's another school of thought, and I'm not going to give you my opinion on this, I'm just going to tell you the school of thought. A lot of people really, really believe that it's our immunizations and vaccines that are partly, at least, at fault for the increase in autism in our population. I'm not going to give you my opinion on that, but I will tell you that what the research is suggesting, that in many of those cases is not the actual vaccination, but it's the carrier, it's a preservative in many of these vaccinations. There's a preservative called thimerosal. Thimerosal is 40% mercury. What detoxifies heavy metals and mercury? Starting to add up. So I did a study on kids with autism and put them on Immunocal, because the question was, because Immunocal was a weight-based protein, people were afraid of whey, afraid of milk products, because a lot of autistic kids react poorly to milk products, but it's mostly the casein in the milk. We don't have casein in Immunocal. And they did well. It's just a pilot study, but it went on to roll into another study at almost completed in Florida, one of the largest autism treatment centers in North America. And if you go on your computer now and you enter you enter autism and glutathione, you won't have enough paper in your printer to accept what's going on. This is going to make a big difference, I truly believe. University of Denver, we're looking at raising glutathione and the effects of glutathione on ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Back at home in McGill, we got some of the top neurologists looking at raising glutathione in Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, and these publications are around the corner. So smarter? I guess. Stronger? Back in the late 90s, John Molson, we mentioned that John was a shareholder. John's actually quite the athlete. He's into cycling. I used to say bicycling, he hated that. And he had some buddies on the Canadian Olympic team. And I remember sitting around one day with Molson and Bunos, and we were looking at the literature that suggested that athletes, elite athletes, who are really working out hard, very often drop their immune systems. You work out too hard, you reach a plateau and you crash. Think about the last number of Olympics. There's always, before the Olympic Games, this virus that rips through the Olympic Village. And, imagine what that's like. You're 18 years old, you're training your whole life for something, and the day before you got to perform, you got a temperature of 103. So we were interested in this. We thought that maybe we could reduce the amount of illness. And John happened to give a bunch of Immunocal to his buddy who was training on his cycle. And they were up near here in the Rockies, in Banff, I think it was. And that's a hell of a place to be on a bicycle. And he was living in a cottage, a cabin, with 5 other guys. And sure enough, 5 guys get sick, catch cold, he doesn't. Does this have any statistical relevance? None at all. But you can be sure that the other 5 guys wanted to start taking the Immunocal, which is great for us because all of a sudden now we have this little cohort of individuals that we can do a study on, or at least an informal study on. And athletes are really easy to study. These guys are nuts. How many calories did I eat? How many hours did I sleep? You know, all this stuff. So they were data collectors, the best you can find. And after a number of months, sure enough, we brought them back, and they weren't getting as sick as often. And when they did, they weren't as sick. So we were all smiling and happy. And one of the guys says, "Yeah, but," I hate when people go, "Yeah, but," it's usually bad news. "Yeah, but what?" "Yeah, but we also noticed that our performance was better." "What do you mean your performance was better?" "Well, we're doing about 1% better." Molson jumps up and everybody's giving each other high fives, and I'm sitting there like, 1%. I'm so damn excited about it. Until I was educated, in the majority of Olympic events, the difference between the gold medal and the poor slob coming up in 5th place is less than 1%. So they were thrilled. So we did an official study, we did a formal study at McGill, where we took healthy young people, put them either on a placebo or Immunocal at the beginning of the summer, brought them in at the end of the summer, tested it for muscle strength and endurance. We showed between a 10 and 15% increase. And when we published that, the phone was ringing off the wall in Molson's office. Trainers, nutritionists, team owners, athletes, all wanted in on that. The other day I was speaking to a bunch of kids, I call them kids, they were 20-year-old soccer players. And I said, the phone was ringing off the wall. And they go, "What? You had phones on the wall?" More recently, we did a study in a geriatric population, similar study. put them on an exercise program, and you have the Immunocal placebo, 10% increase in muscle strength. What does that mean in an older person? It means either being in bed or in a wheelchair. In a wheelchair or a walker. A walker or a cane. A cane or playing with your grandkids. These are huge differences. Being independent at home for a longer period of time. And this is so important. And from those two studies, we made the application to Canada, and we got this claim for muscle function. No one else has. I mean, find another natural substance that has that. You're going to have a very hard time. And of course, because of our research, there are many, many athletes that want to take the product. I don't know whether your daughter had restrictions, but certainly professional athletes and Olympic, yeah, they test it all the time, and they're told.
We look for that symbol.
Yeah, yeah. Because you have to be able to trust what you're taking. You don't want to take a supplement and then get nailed for steroids or whatever on a test. So we have this on every box of Immunocal. So all the athletes know that it's free of banned substances. So just remember, smarter, stronger, healthier, and you have the research and the support. And who in this room could not benefit from any of those three things? Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Gutman, thank you for making me smarter, stronger, and healthier. Yeah.
Your toughest question. Ask me tough questions.
Dr. Gutman,
Yes.
fibromyalgia, does it help with it? What does it do to a person that has it?
I have to change your question a little, and I also have to turn off the cameras. Because again,
Yes.
we